Case 1. Anna Delvey. She walked into 5-star hotels like she owned them. Designer clothes, first-class flights, champagne that cost more than most people's rent. Anna Delvey was living the dream, except none of it was real. Born Anna Sorokin in a small Russian town in 1991, she was just the daughter of a truck driver. Nothing special, nothing glamorous. But Anna had a gift. She could make people believe anything. After moving to New York in 2013, Anna reinvented herself completely. She wasn't Anna Sorokin anymore. She was Anna Delvey, German heiress with a 60 million euro trust fund waiting for her in Europe. At least that's what she told everyone. The scam was brilliant in its simplicity. Anna would check into luxury hotels, the kind with marble lobbies and staff who remembered your name. She'd tip outrageously, sometimes hundreds of dollars for small favors. The staff loved her. She'd hand over credit cards that looked legitimate, live like royalty for weeks, then quietly slip away when the bills came due. But the real con was bigger than hotel rooms. Anna wanted to create the Anna Delvey Foundation, an exclusive arts club for Manhattan's elite. She needed investors, so she forged Swiss bank statements, 60 million euros, all fake. Yet somehow people believed her. She'd go to expensive restaurants and forget her wallet. Her new rich friends would pay, charmed by her confidence and those generous tips they'd seen her give. She rented a private jet for $35,000, paid with credit she'd sweet-talked an airline CEO into giving her at a party. Then came Morocco. Anna invited 3 friends for an all-expenses-paid luxury vacation in Marrakesh. Except when the hotel bill came, her credit card was declined. One friend, Rachel Williams, ended up covering everything: hotels, shopping, tourist excursions. The total over $60,000. Anna promised to wire the money back. She never did. That's when the house of cards started falling. Hotels she'd scammed began filing complaints. Banks realized her documents were forged. On October 3, 2017, police arrested Anna in Los Angeles. She'd stolen close to $275,000 from banks, hotels, and friends. But even her trial was a spectacle. Anna showed up to court in designer outfits, styled by a professional, paid for by a secret admirer. When her clothes didn't arrive one day, the judge forced her to appear in prison garb. Anna was furious. The jury found her guilty of 8 charges. On May 9, 2019, she was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison and ordered to pay back $199,000. In a prison interview, Anna showed no remorse. "I never tried to convince anyone of anything," she said. "I just told people what I wanted and they gave it to me." When asked if crime pays, she smiled. "In a way, yes." Netflix paid her $320,000 for the rights to her story. Released on parole in 2021, she was immediately detained by immigration. But Anna Delvey isn't done yet. Her Instagram suggests she's still in America, still playing the game. Some cons never truly end. Case 2. Elizabeth Holmes. She had Steve Jobs' black turtleneck, his intense stare, his reality distortion field. Elizabeth Holmes was going to change the world, or so everyone believed. At 19, Elizabeth dropped out of Stanford with a revolutionary idea. A device that could run hundreds of medical tests from a single drop of blood. No needles, no waiting. Just a finger prick and you'd know if you had cancer, diabetes, or dozens of other conditions. She called it Theranos. By 2013, Elizabeth had raised $700 million from investors. Walgreens and Safeway signed deals. Her company was valued at $9 billion. Elizabeth herself was worth $4.5 billion on paper. She was 30 years old. Forbes called her the youngest self-made female billionaire. Time named her one of the world's most influential people. She wore black turtlenecks and spoke in an unnaturally deep voice, channeling the ghost of Steve Jobs himself. There was just one problem. None of it worked. Theranos couldn't do what Elizabeth promised. A tiny drop of blood wasn't enough for accurate testing. So they diluted the samples, making results dangerously unreliable. Inside the company, employees lived in fear. Question Elizabeth? You were fired. One employee, crushed by the pressure, took his own life. But people kept believing. Elizabeth had mastered the art of manipulation, magnetic confidence, that piercing stare, and a voice she'd deliberately deepened to sound more authoritative. Investors couldn't resist. Then Erica Chung, a young lab assistant, saw something that horrified her. Tests were failing constantly. Results were being manipulated. Patients were receiving wrong diagnoses, potentially life-threatening ones. Erica contacted journalist John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal. Theranos fought back viciously. They hired private investigators to follow sources. High-powered lawyers sent legal threats. Board members pressured the journal to kill the story. But on October 15, 2015, Carreyrou published his bombshell investigation. Everything collapsed overnight. The FDA raided Theranos labs. Partnerships dissolved. Nearly 1 million test results had to be voided. 1 million people who'd received potentially deadly misinformation about their health. In 2018, Elizabeth was charged with massive fraud. In court, she blamed her business partner and secret boyfriend, Sunny Balwani. She claimed he'd abused her emotionally and physically, forced her to lie. She cried on the witness stand. A calculated performance for sympathy. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty. Elizabeth Holmes was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Sunny Balwani got 13. From celebrated billionaire to federal inmate, her fall was absolute. Yet even now, some defend her. They say she was just a visionary ahead of her time, that her technology needed more development, that she's being punished for ambition. But the truth is simpler and darker. Elizabeth Holmes risked millions of lives for money and fame. She built an empire on confidence, but without competence, it could only burn. The lesson? Belief is powerful. But believing your own lies? That's when people get hurt. Case 3. Sante and Kenneth Kimes. Most mothers teach their children right from wrong. Sante Kimes taught her son how to murder. Born in the Bronx in 1934, Sante had always craved wealth and power. She was manipulative, charming when she needed to be, ruthless when she didn't. When she met Kenneth Kimes Sr., she saw an opportunity. After he died, she had her son, Kenneth Jr., born in 1960. She called him her partner in crime, and she meant it literally. By the mid-1980s, Sante was trafficking women from Central America, forcing them into slavery in her homes across America. In 1985, she was convicted and served 5 years. Kenneth Jr. watched, learned, and waited. But slavery wasn't enough for Sante. She wanted more. In September 1990, she hired a lawyer named Elmer Holmgren to help with an insurance scam, burning down a house in Honolulu. When the arson was done, Holmgren became a liability. He threatened to expose them. Sante killed him with a hammer. Kenneth helped dispose of the body. It was never found. 6 years later, they allegedly murdered a Bahamian banker named Syed Bilal Ahmed. He'd grown suspicious of their financial schemes. They drugged him, then drowned him at sea. No charges were ever filed. The Kimeses were getting away with murder, literally. In March 1998, they killed again. David Kasdan was a family friend who discovered Sante had forged his signature to steal his property. When he threatened to expose her, Kenneth shot him in the head. His body was dumped in a trash bin near Los Angeles International Airport, but their most notorious crime was still to come. On July 5, 1998, 82-year-old Irene Silverman disappeared from her Manhattan townhouse. She was a wealthy socialite living alone, exactly the kind of target Sante loved. Kenneth had rented a room in her building, and Irene had grown suspicious of him. She planned to evict him and had told friends she was afraid. She was right to be. Police found Irene's personal belongings in the Kimes' car during an unrelated arrest. The investigation revealed the horrific truth. Sante had incapacitated Irene with a stun gun while Kenneth strangled her. They turned on the television to muffle her cries. Then they stuffed her body into garbage bags and dumped it at a New Jersey construction site. Irene Silverman's body was never recovered. In October 2000, while awaiting trial, Kenneth did something shocking. During a court TV interview, he took reporter Maria Zone hostage, pressing a pen to her throat and demanding passage to Canada. The standoff lasted 4 hours before Zone escaped. Facing the death penalty in California for David Kasdan's murder, Kenneth finally broke. He offered prosecutors a deal, removed the death penalty, and he'd confess everything. He did. Kenneth described in gruesome detail how they'd murdered Irene Silverman, how his mother had controlled every aspect of their crimes, how he'd been raised to believe this was normal. He expressed remorse, reflecting on how his upbringing had destroyed his life. But it was too late. The damage was done. Sante Kimes died in prison on May 19, 2014 at age 79. She never showed remorse. Kenneth remains incarcerated to this day, serving life without parole. Their story is a chilling reminder. Some bonds are toxic, and when a mother teaches her child to kill, the legacy is written in blood. Case 4. Cassie Chadwick. Before Bernie Madoff, before Anna Delvey, there was Cassie Chadwick, the original wizard of finance. Born Elizabeth Bigley in 1857 in Ontario, Canada, Cassie learned early that the world rewards those who lie well. At 14, she opened a bank account using a forged inheritance letter. She was arrested, but released on grounds of insanity, the first of many escapes. She created business cards, claiming she was an heiress to $15,000, and used them as collateral to buy expensive items. Shopkeepers assumed anyone carrying such cards must be wealthy. She briefly served time in an Illinois prison for fraud as a teenager, then set her sights on bigger prey: Ohio. In Cleveland in 1880, Cassie reinvented herself as Madame Lydia DeVere, a clairvoyant. She married Dr. Wallace Springsteen, but when the Cleveland Plain Dealer published news of their marriage, people she'd conned came demanding their money. Springsteen threw her out. The marriage lasted 12 days. Cassie married again, this time to a farmer named J.R. Scott in Trumbull County. That marriage also ended quickly. Her third husband, wealthy businessman C.L. Hoover, died shortly after they married. Cassie inherited his estate and sent their son to Canada to be raised by relatives. People called her the Lady of the Hypnotic Eye. Some victims claimed she had actual hypnotic powers. That's how convincing she was. In 1889, Cassie was arrested again for forgery and sentenced to 9.5 years. Future President William McKinley, then governor of Ohio, paroled her halfway through. She moved back to Cleveland and became the madam of a brothel. That's where she met Dr. Leroy Chadwick. When he told her she was running a brothel, Cassie fainted dramatically. When she woke, she begged him to save her from this terrible life. He married her in 1897, but Dr. Chadwick's fortune was tied up in Cleveland real estate, and property values were plummeting. Cassie needed cash flow, so she created her masterpiece. Cassie claimed to be Andrew Carnegie's illegitimate daughter. She forged documents showing Carnegie had given her over $7 million in promissory notes. She told banks she'd inherit a massive fortune when he died. The banks believed her. They loaned her enormous sums using Carnegie's forged signature as collateral. Cassie used the money from one loan to pay another, her own personal Ponzi scheme decades before Ponzi. She bought 8 grand pianos, 12 solid gold picture frames, entire stores full of toys, trays of gemstones. She lived like the Queen of Ohio, and everyone believed the fantasy. In 1904, banker Herbert Newton sued when Cassie couldn't repay a loan. Her empire began crumbling. Police questioned Andrew Carnegie, who'd never heard of her. Cassie fled to New York but was arrested. She was wearing a money belt containing over $100,000 in cash. Her trial became a national sensation. People packed the courtroom. Some believed she was innocent, that Carnegie was lying to protect his reputation. But in March 1905, she was convicted of conspiracy against the United States and conspiracy to wreck the Citizens National Bank of Oberlin. Cassie was sentenced to over a decade in prison and fined $70,000. When the judge pronounced the sentence, she fell into hysterics, screaming and sobbing. She was jailed on January 12, 1906. Her health collapsed immediately. Rapid weight loss, total nervous breakdown. She died in prison 1 year later at age 51, her body and mind destroyed by confinement. Ironically, Andrew Carnegie donated money to Oberlin citizens affected by Cassie's scam. He even built the Carnegie Library at Oberlin College, completed in 1907, the same year Cassie died in prison. The Chadwick Mansion became a tourist attraction before being demolished in the 1920s. Cassie's story faded but never disappeared. She stole over $20 million in today's dollars and nearly destroyed Ohio's banking system. Female fraudsters like Anna Sorokin and Elizabeth Holmes dominate headlines now, but none perfected the art quite like Cassie Chadwick. They called her the world's greatest woman swindler. She earned it. Case 5. Annie Reilly. She was only 5 feet tall and weighed barely over 100 pounds. But Annie Reilly was the most prolific female thief in 19th century America, and one of the greatest escape artists who ever lived. Born Kate Foley around 1841 in Ireland, Annie came to America as a teenager. She discovered her talent early. People trusted her, especially wealthy people who needed a servant or a child's nurse. Annie's method was brilliantly simple. She'd apply for positions in wealthy households, make a huge fuss over the children, and win over the lady of the house with her charm and warmth. She spoke multiple languages. She had a round, pleasant face and gray eyes that seemed honest. Then, within 1 or 2 days, she'd disappear, taking thousands of dollars in jewelry with her. Inspector Thomas Burns, the legendary New York detective, called her the cleverest woman in her line in America. He wasn't exaggerating. Annie stole more property in 15 years than any other 4 women in the country combined. Her first known arrest came in 1866 under the name Kate Foley. She'd robbed several wealthy families and pawned their valuables. Sentenced to 5 years at Sing Sing prison, she should have served her time. But Annie had other plans. By late 1867, she was free, far too early for a commuted sentence. She'd either escaped or talked her way out. In December 1867, she robbed the Johnson family in Manhattan, then moved on to families in New Jersey and Brooklyn. Arrested in January 1868 as Marianne Reilly, she was sentenced to 2 years at Sing Sing. In May 1869, Annie escaped again, this time spectacularly. She crawled through a skylight onto the prison roof, slid down a lightning rod, and vanished into the night. Prison officials didn't notice until morning. Detective Kimes, who knew Annie's methods better than anyone, tracked her relentlessly. He caught her in November 1870 and sent her to Blackwell's Island for 6 months. Upon release, she fled to Connecticut and committed a string of robberies there before being caught and imprisoned again. In spring 1873, a new wave of servant robberies hit New York's elite, culminating in a theft from the military secretary of Governor Dix. The entire detective force was mobilized. Detective Kearns knew exactly how to catch her. He placed fake job advertisements in newspapers, giving addresses to vacant lots. Then he and Inspector Kieran watched and waited. When Annie arrived looking for the fake address, she sensed something was wrong. She bolted into a nearby house through the basement, but the detectives followed. They found her in the hallway. This time, Annie confessed. She was sentenced to 4 years at Sing Sing. Assigned to assist prison nurses, Annie lasted exactly 1 month before escaping again. She went to an upstairs room, closed the door, and jumped out the window onto a bell rope. She slid to the ground and disappeared. It took Detective Kearns a full year to find her. He arrested her again in June 1877, after she'd victimized dozens more households. This time she went to Blackwell's Island as Kate Williams for 2 years, and didn't escape. Her history follows the pattern. Arrested August 1880, another 3 years on Blackwell's Island. Then Brooklyn, arrested as Kate Manning, sentenced to 4.5 years in Kings County Penitentiary. The warden described her as the most remarkable woman in the prison. He added, "Who she is or where she came from are mysteries which no detective has been able to unravel. She does not seem to have a relative, friend, or acquaintance in the world, and she lives completely within herself." After her release in 1887, Annie Reilly was never heard from again. Did she reform? Did she die quietly somewhere under another name? Did she continue stealing, simply too clever to be caught again? No one knows. Annie Reilly vanished into legend, the 5-foot thief who escaped from Sing Sing twice, who spoke 3 languages, who charmed her way into dozens of wealthy homes and walked out with fortunes. Some mysteries are never solved. Annie Reilly remains one of them. Case 6. Bertha Heyman. Big Bertha, the confidence queen. She weighed 245 pounds and stood barely over 5 feet tall. But Bertha Heyman could walk into any luxury hotel in America and make people believe she was a millionaire heiress, even from her prison cell. Born in Prussia in 1851, Bertha arrived in America at age 10. By her 20s, she'd discovered her talent. She could make wealthy men hand over their fortunes by simply asking for them. Her method was theatrical perfection. Bertha would check into Manhattan's finest hotels, the St. Denis, the Gilsey House, the Hotel Brunswick. She'd arrive with servants in livery, maids carrying expensive luggage, and an air of absolute wealth. She'd drop names casually over dinner. "My dear friends, the Astors or the Vanderbilts send their regards." Then a messenger would arrive with an enormous bouquet of flowers, bearing a card from Gould Astor, or Vanderbilt. Of course, Bertha had bought the flowers herself and forged the cards. The florist still remembered her decades later as his worst customer. Inspector Thomas Burns, the famous New York detective, called her methods brilliant. "She possesses a wonderful knowledge of human nature," he wrote, "and can deceive those who consider themselves particularly shrewd in business matters." But it was her eyes that really sealed the deal. Even those who described her as homely had to admit, her dark brown eyes could light up her entire face. When Bertha looked at you, you believed. Her cons were variations on a simple theme. She was a wealthy woman unable to access her vast fortune, and she needed temporary funds. A gentleman named Boddy handed over $5,000. The firm of Bates, Reed & Cooley gave her another $5,000. Even her own employee, Mr. Brandt, loaned her $1,000 he'd never see again. But her masterpiece was Edward Perrin, a train conductor earning $80 a month. Bertha told him she was heir to a massive estate and was paying a New York lawyer $6,000 annually to manage it. She offered him a job managing her fortune for $2,000 a year. Perrin quit his job. Then Bertha began borrowing small amounts to pay debts. Before he realized what was happening, she'd taken $1,038 from him. When he demanded to begin his duties as her estate manager, she promised it would all happen once Robert Bonner, her guardian and the executor of her inheritance, released her funds. It was all lies. Bonner had never heard of her. In 1881, Bertha was finally arrested and convicted. She received 2 years. But even prison couldn't stop her. In 1883, while locked in Blackwell's Island Penitentiary, Bertha ran another scam. She contacted a German man named Charles Karp from her cell, told him about a strong box filled with bonds and jewelry stored in a vault, and convinced him she needed money to pay storage liens and bribe the warden for early release. Karpe sent her money multiple times. She promised to repay him tenfold. By the time he realized he'd been conned, Bertha had left him penniless. Released from Blackwell's, she went to the Hoffman house and immediately began new scams. She was caught again, tried and convicted of swindling $87,000 from her victims. On August 22, 1883, she was sentenced to 5 years at Sing Sing prison. But Bertha's story took a bizarre turn in 1888. Calling herself Bertha Stanley and traveling with her stepson Willie, she arrived in San Francisco and immediately began working her magic on the wealthy Hebrew community. She got engaged to a merchant, gave him a $30,000 check as collateral, and received a $500 diamond ring, plus thousands in other gems. When he wired the bank, the check was worthless. Arrested in San Antonio, Texas, Bertha was brought back to San Francisco. And then something unexpected happened. Theatrical impresario Ned Foster bailed her out and decided to make her a stage star. She was a sensation. People gathered around posters of Big Bertha all day, discussing whether they'd see her perform. When she finally appeared on stage, wearing flesh-colored tights opposite performer Oofty Goofty, she created a scandal and packed theaters throughout San Francisco. The criminal charges against her mysteriously collapsed. Willie got 6 months, but Bertha walked free. For months, she toured San Francisco stages, appearing at Woodward's Gardens, Bella Union Theater, and Cremorne Gardens. She even participated in staged boxing matches, where she knocked out opponents. The public couldn't get enough of her outlandish personality and swindling exploits. Perhaps that's why Bertha never felt guilty. When asked about her philosophy, she once said, "I take no pride in outwitting a fool, but I delight in getting into the confidence and pockets of men who think they can't be skinned. It ministers to my intellectual pride. Bertha Heyman died on her own terms, famous, unrepentant, and convinced she'd earned every dollar she'd stolen. Case 7. Samantha Azzopardi. She was found wandering outside Dublin's General Post Office in October 2013, traumatized, unable to speak, appearing to be about 14 years old. Police believed she was a victim of sex trafficking. They launched an international investigation costing over $200,000. Interpol got involved. Missing persons bureaus across Europe searched for her identity. Then came a call from the other side of the world. The traumatized 14-year-old girl was actually Samantha Azzopardi, a 25-year-old Australian woman with a very strange habit. She collected identities the way other people collect coins. Over 75 fake names, maybe more than 100, nobody knows for sure. Born in Campbelltown, Australia in 1988, Samantha started early. At 19, she tried to enroll in schools in Brisbane, posing as a 14-year-old student named Dakota Johnson. She forged reference letters. When caught, she received a $500 fine. But she couldn't stop. Unlike most con artists, Samantha didn't want money. She wanted something more mysterious: attention, sympathy, and access to other people's children. She'd pose as a nanny, and parents said she seemed perfect. Happy, confident, great with kids. The children loved her instantly. Then after weeks or months, families would discover the truth. Everything about her was fake. In September 2014, she walked into a health center in Calgary, Canada, calling herself Aurora Hepburn. She claimed she was 14 and had been sexually assaulted and abducted. Canadian police spent $150,000 investigating her claims before learning the truth. She was convicted of public mischief, served 2 months, and was deported back to Australia. In late 2016, she enrolled at Good Shepherd School in Sydney as 13-year-old Harper Hart. She received education, counseling, food, accommodation, and electronics before being caught and charged with fraud. The pattern repeated endlessly. She'd become a French talent scout named Coco and convince a family their average-looking daughter could be a famous model. She flew the teenager hundreds of kilometers from Sydney to Melbourne for a fake audition. The mother had trusted a complete stranger with her child because Samantha made it seem so real. During her trial, forensic psychiatrists diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder and pseudologia fantastica, a rare condition involving compulsive lying. They said she was trying to recreate a happy childhood narrative, that some deep trauma drove her to repeatedly pretend to be a destitute teen. But could anyone really believe her? Samantha gave different versions of her history to different psychiatrists. Court documents were filled with inconsistencies. One warden called her the most remarkable woman in the prison and noted she seemed to have no family, friends, or acquaintances. She lived completely within herself. In March 2022, she appeared in a Sydney court dressed in black, blonde hair covered by a scarf, face hidden behind a COVID mask. She was tall and very thin, completely different from the few photos that existed. The judge had to coax responses from her, demanding she speak up. She was sentenced to 3 years of supervised psychological assessment and rehabilitation. Within months, she reoffended. She applied for a job as a nanny to small children under a false Polish identity. Simultaneously, she appeared at a Jewish charity claiming she'd been sex trafficked. Between August and October 2023, She posed as 17-year-old Belgian abuse victim Hattie Lee and obtained $20,000 in aid from Family Violence Services in Melbourne. In October 2024, she was sentenced to 2 years in prison. The question haunts everyone who encounters her story. Why? What drives someone to assume false identities, con families, and manipulate authorities across 3 continents, not for money, but for something deeper and stranger? Samantha Azzopardi currently sits in Victoria's Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, eligible for parole in 2026. Will she stop? Can she stop? Or will she simply find another name, another story, another family to deceive? Nobody knows. Not even Samantha. Case 8. Melissa Caddick. The shoe washed up on Bournda Beach in February 2021, 500 kilometers south of Sydney. Inside was a decomposed human foot. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Melissa Caddick, the 49-year-old financial advisor who'd vanished 3 months earlier, the morning after police raided her mansion. But where was the rest of her? For years, Melissa had lived the dream. Luxury penthouse in Dover Heights, skiing trips to Aspen, designer clothes and jewelry worth millions, sports cars, a lifestyle that screamed success. Her clients, many of them close friends and family, believed she was a financial genius. She told them she was investing their money in shares, managing their portfolios with expertise that delivered stellar returns. They trusted her completely. After all, she sent them detailed ComSec statements every month showing exactly how their investments were growing. Everything was fake. Melissa had no financial services license. She wasn't investing anyone's money. She was running a classic Ponzi scheme, using new investors' funds to pay fake returns to earlier investors. The ComSec statements? Completely fabricated. The account numbers? Made up. For 8 years, from 2012 to 2020, Melissa stole approximately $30 million from 72 victims, friends, family, people who loved her. The scheme began unraveling in mid-2020 when a financial advisor discovered Melissa was illegally using her license number. Then came a chance encounter in a dentist's office. One of Melissa's investors, Dominique Ogilvy, mentioned she'd invested through Melissa Caddick. The woman's face changed. "I need to speak with you," she said urgently. Later that day, she told Ogilvy the truth. Melissa was using her financial license illegally. Ogilvy called Melissa immediately, claiming she needed her $2.5 million back to buy a house. Melissa knew it was over. The day after Ogilvy withdrew her funds, Melissa hired a shredding company to dispose of documents. On November 11, 2020, Australian federal police and corporate regulators raided Melissa's home. She spent the day filing her nails, even napping during questioning, calmly denying everything. That night, she consulted with lawyers. Hours before dawn on November 12th, her son heard a door close around 5:30 a.m. He assumed his mother was going for her daily run. She left behind her mobile phone, wallet, and keys. She was never seen again. The CCTV system had been seized during the raid, so there was no footage of which direction she went. Conspiracy theories exploded. Had she fled to another country with a false passport? Was she hiding somewhere with money she'd stashed away? Then came the shoe. Marine police confirmed the location matched tidal and drift patterns. If a body had entered the water near Dover Heights around the time of Melissa's disappearance, it would likely wash up near Bermagee, just 40 kilometers north of where the foot was found. But an autopsy couldn't determine whether the foot was deliberately severed or separated through decomposition. In May 2023, A coroner declared Melissa deceased, but couldn't determine how she died. The deputy coroner noted that Melissa's husband, Anthony Coletti, had delayed reporting her disappearance and gave significant discrepancies in his accounts to police, raising strong suspicion he knew more than he was telling. The most persuasive evidence of her death? She'd never contacted her son, and she'd been deeply attached to him. Victims received partial compensation, $7.25 million total from the sale of Melissa's mansion and penthouse. It was a fraction of the $30 million she'd stolen. Her mother blamed regulators for Melissa's death. Her husband suggested in his music that she'd been mistreated during the raid. But the truth is simpler and darker. Melissa Caddick betrayed everyone who loved her, including her own parents, to fund a lifestyle built entirely on lies. When the walls closed in, she disappeared, leaving behind only questions and a single decomposed foot. Some mysteries remain unsolved. Melissa Caddick's final moments are one of them. Case 9. Adele Spitzeder. 50 years before Charles Ponzi gave his name to history's most famous fraud, a failed actress in Munich invented the scheme that would ruin thousands. Her name was Adele Spitzeder, and in 1869, she accidentally discovered that lying about money was far more profitable than acting. Born in Berlin in 1832, Adele had enjoyed brief success on stage in 1856. But by the late 1860s, roles were scarce, and her expensive lifestyle was crumbling. She'd already fled debt collectors in Hamburg and Zurich. Her modest allowance from her mother couldn't support her household in luxury hotels, herself, her girlfriend, multiple servants, and 6 dogs. Late in 1869, desperate for cash, Adele met a working-class woman and told her a spontaneous lie. She knew someone willing to pay 10% interest per month on investments. The woman handed over 100 gulden, about $400 today. Days later, Adele returned with 20 gulden, promising 110 more in 3 months. Word spread like wildfire through Munich's working-class neighborhoods. Suddenly, everyone wanted to give Adele their savings. By year's end, she'd founded the Dachauer Bank. Her timing was perfect. Bavaria had recently repealed usury laws, and anti-Semitic sentiment was high. Many poor Christians deeply mistrusted Bavaria's supposedly Jewish-dominated banks. Adele positioned herself as their savior, a Christian woman who understood Hebrew finance, but wanted to help the poor. Some newspapers called her Saint Crispina. Adele advertised returns of 10% every 60 days. Traditional Bavarian savings banks offered about 3% annually. The choice seemed obvious. By 1871, she was receiving 50,000 to 60,000 gulden daily, even after lowering returns to 8% monthly. Bought herself a mansion for 54,000 gulden. She purchased 17 prime properties throughout Munich. She owned artwork worth millions. 83 employees worked from her house, including brokers who earned 5 to 7% commission for each new customer they recruited. Contemporary reports called her the wealthiest woman in Bavaria. The success was destroying legitimate banks. The Munich Sparkasse lost 50,000 gulden in deposits by May 1871. By fall 1872, Bavaria's interior minister warned the king that several regional banks faced insolvency because customers were withdrawing everything to invest with Adele. But authorities couldn't stop her. Banking regulations barely existed. Bavaria had recently introduced laws allowing almost any business to operate with minimal oversight. And technically, Adele wasn't breaking any laws. She was paying customers exactly what she'd promised. The government tried public warnings. Newspapers attacked her as a fraud. The Archbishop of Munich issued warnings from the pulpit. None of it worked. In fact, each attack brought more customers. People believed Adele's claims that she was the victim of a conspiracy by wealthy Jewish bankers trying to destroy her. Finally, in 1872, authorities forced her to register as a bank and follow proper accounting procedures. But Adele was clever. She simply stopped the bank's lending activities, which had always been fake anyway, and continued taking deposits. Then, in November 1872, 60 customers showed up at her door, demanding their money. Someone had organized them, likely her competitors, hoping to trigger a bank run. Adele fled. She didn't get far. Arrested and brought to trial in 1873, Adele faced a legal problem. Ponzi schemes weren't illegal yet. She was convicted instead of bad accounting and mishandling customers' money. Her sentence nearly 4 years in prison. The damage was catastrophic. 32,000 people had lost a combined 38 million gulden, roughly $152 million in today's money. Entire families were ruined. Working-class victims who'd given Adele their life savings had nothing left. Adele Spitzeder died in 1895 at age 63, 22 years after her conviction. By then, she'd been mostly forgotten. But her legacy lived on. The Dachauer bank scandal influenced discussions about banking regulation throughout Germany. It exposed how easily private banking could be manipulated when oversight didn't exist. 50 years later, Charles Ponzi would run a similar scheme in Boston, promising 50% returns in 90 days. When he was caught in 1920, journalists began calling such scams Ponzi schemes. But Adele Spitzeder had invented it first. She'd proven that confidence is worth more than gold, as long as new believers keep arriving. The mathematics were always impossible. Every Ponzi scheme must eventually collapse. But human greed and the desire to believe in easy wealth, those are eternal. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.